Hello, my name is Snehal Desai, and I will be going over thyroid disorders as part of the endocrine section of the NAPLEX review course. Here are the topics that's usually covered on the NAPLEX. This is just a couple of few topics, just to give you an idea what is covered in the endocrine section. The one we're going to be focusing mostly on is the thyroid disorder section. Um, I'm just going to talk briefly. There aren't that many medications for the thyroid disorders. There are other types of thyroid diseases I have not covered in this lecture, but I'll talk about it in future lectures. And so just review your notes in the meantime on these things, um, and you will see more uploaded information on this as well. So we already talked about diabetes mellitus, thyroid disorders is next, and then we will talk about the other disease states here as well in the future lectures. So just wanted to show you, give you an idea of what's covered in the endocrine section here. So basically, the first thing you should just understand is what is thyroid? What does it do? Why is it important? Taking that into account. The thyroid gland has three main components here. You have here the T3, the T4, the calcitonin, and how they all play a role in regulating the heart function, the digestion, the brain function, also for bone health, kidney clearance rate, and also parathyroid hormone production. There is a short you can look at in one of in the same YouTube channel, the FarmBits YouTube channel, that kind of talks briefly about the parathyroid hormone, and how it actually plays a role in parts of the body as well. And also, you already saw, you see here that thyroid gland um, um, has something to do with the kidneys as well. So there is a video short on chronic kidney disease if you want to take a look at that, and how parathyroid hormone and other hormones play a role in terms of the kidney clearance rate and all of that. I think there is a little bit about how bone health is played a role in this as well, specifically because of how calcium is being cleared or retained in the body. You can see all of that as well. So there's a short on it. I recommend at least just taking a look at it. It's a really good scenario with some information that might help you kind of picture how it's important to kidneys as well. So just take a look at that when you have a chance. So we're going to talk about more of the T3 and T4 lab values, and the medications that play a role with these um, different functions. TSH, or feedback mechanism for the TSH, we'll talk about that briefly in these future slides. So you can see here, thyroid disorders play mainly a role with the T3 and T4 hormones. When it's very high, when you have very high T3 and T4, you're actually going to have hyperthyroidism. That's where the thyroid levels are very high. And when T3 and T4 is high, your TSH levels are low. So know that TSH is low and T3, T4 is high. The TSH kind of like opposite levels. So Hyper is when T3, T4 is high. Hypothyroidism. Hypo is when T3, T4 is low and TSH is high. So that, just note those differences, especially for exam purposes. So you can see here a negative feedback loop in which the thyrotropin releasing hormone is released from the hypothalamus, and then it signals the pituitary gland to release the TSH. That TSH, or the thyroid stimulating hormone, stimulates the thyroid gland to make more T4 and T3, and then thyroid releases a T4 and T3 to the blood, and T4 is converted to T3. Now, which one is the most active? Which one's active? Is the T3. Okay, T4 is a pro-hormone. It needs to convert to T3 to do most of the cellular activity and actually cause, show some action in the body. So T3 is the main thing here. T4 is just a pro-hormone. It just converts to T3 in the tissues. Now, when it's too high, okay, T3, T4 is going to send a signal to the thyroid. T4 specifically is going to send a signal to the thyroid stimulating hormone and shut it down. So it doesn't have to produce more T4 and T3. It has enough in the body. When it's too low, you can see there's going to be a more increase in the TSH. So you can kind of see this loop. Just to give you a general idea of it, TSH is dependent on the T3, T4 levels. If T4 gets too high, then let's stop the TSH production. And if T4 gets too low, then let's continue the TSH production, increase it. So that's what's happening here. And I believe the T3 is mainly playing a role with the TRH, but we'll just talk about T4 right now, so at least that kind of, you can correlate the T4 and TSH mostly. Let's talk more about these medications next. Levothyroxine, leothyronine, Leotrix, and Armothyroid. These are the four main medications in treating hypothyroidism. So in this lecture, I haven't really put together the hyperthyroidism treatments. There's stuff we have to talk about that as well. I'm just going to cover hypothyroidism treatments in this lecture, and then the next one, we'll talk about the hyperthyroidism. But just to keep it short, levothyroxine mainly is a synthetic hormone for T4, and leothyronine is a synthetic hormone for T3. So they kind of mimic T4 and T3 here. Leotrix is it's basically a combination of both, and you'll see how that plays a role as well. Leotrix and Armothyroid are essentially like the same thing. They're going to work in both pathways, how levothyroxine and leothyronine works. So it's like taking levothyroxine and leothyronine at the same time, but it's actually just one pill. So it'll kind of break into two different pathways here, and I'll show you in the next slides here. This is the levothyroxine mechanism. It gets absorbed in the intestine and then binds to the thyroxine binding globulin, which is the TBG. That's actually produced by the liver, and then it goes into the blood and binds to the medication here, the levothyroxine or synthetic T4. Um, what happens next here is pretty interesting. It gets converted to T4, T3 in the peripheral tissues by an enzyme known as 5' deiodinase. Okay, this is an important enzyme. It converts T4 to T3. And T3 is the one that causes, all the action and stuff in the body. So um, T4, levothyroxine has to go through an additional step to convert, because it has to convert to T3 and cause that action. And leothyronine is like the next step after levothyroxine. It actually, once it's converted to T3, it needs to bind to the receptors inside the cell nucleus. So you can see there are two types of receptors that it binds to. It could bind to the TR alpha or the TR beta. And I listed out the differences here for your reference. Thyroid receptor alpha deals mostly with like the heart, the skeletal muscle, bone, brain, all the stuff we talked about at the very beginning of this lecture, where it can help with those functions. This is, like I said, this is where all the cellular action occurs when T3 binds to the receptor. And then it controls the heart rate, the contractility, heart rate and contractility, regulates blood pressure and metabolism in the muscle, and it's important for brain development. And you could see here that the thyroid receptor beta, how it actually is used for mostly the liver, kidney, pituitary, hypothalamus functions. So it will kind of regulate the cholesterol metabolism, lipid turnover, glucose regulation, TSH feedback it will control, and influence hepatic metabolism. So a lot of things in metabolism looks like it's dealing with the thyroid receptor beta. But again, overall, the thyroid hormone, the T3, is the main thing that will cause the action of all of these different functions. And what is actually kind of causing the acceleration or slowing down of the thyroid is usually where the TSH comes in. So if there's too much TSH, that's because there's low thyroid hormones like T4 and T3. So just know that this is a very simple way of understanding it. So I just want you to understand that there is these three main lab values: the T4, the T3, and the TSH. So just know those. I'm gonna read off a little bit here for you so you can kind of understand a little bit further on this. Leothyronine T3 enters the target cells, binds to the TR alpha or TR beta inside the nucleus. Once bound to thyroid, the receptor hormone complex, okay, this receptor where it binds to that hormone, binds to the thyroid hormone response elements, TREs, on the DNA. This alters transcription of the genes involved in all of these different functions that I described here in this table. So I think it's pretty interesting how levothyroxine is actually the first step in this mechanism, and then it converts to the T3, which is similar to what leothyronine does. So, yeah. Then Leotrix, I mentioned that they actually work both pathways. It's like a 1-to-4 ratio. 40% works in the levothyroxine pathway, and then 20% of that medication works in the leothyronine pathway. And you already saw how they work. You can see here the levothyroxine goes into our blood, going through intestine, binds to TBG, then it dissociates and converts to T3 by 5' dehydrogenase. Then T3 goes ahead and binds to the TR alpha or TR beta. And then that's where the action takes place, is when it binds to the receptors inside the target cell, whether it could be the kidneys, the bone, the brain, the heart, wherever it binds to, that's where it will actually do the work. So that's essentially it. I mean, there isn't too much to know on that slide here. Armored thyroid is similar as T Leothyrotrix, but plays a role more of the T3 than the T4 function. So that's pretty much it in this lecture. If you have any other questions, please feel free to let me know. You can comment on this video or any of my previous videos, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. If you want to talk a little bit more about this, I am free and available whenever you would like to discuss this. And I just wanted to give you a general idea of how some of these medications work. Nothing too much on these lectures. I haven't really had done too much to provide on this thyroid disorder section, because there is additional topics that is yet to be covered. We haven't really talked about Hashimoto's and Graves' disease, but I will definitely get to that in the future lectures. And there's a couple other things as well. So yeah, feel free. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for watching.